Who is Lynn Johnson?
So, my name is Lynn Johnson, and I have been a photographer for, almost 40 years. And much of that time, I've worked for magazines. I started working for a newspaper out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a very powerful beginning, because working for a newspaper makes you understand the importance of being informed and curious and creative on demand.
Okay.
And so those were my early years. I worked in my hometown of Pittsburgh. But then I became interested in longer form photojournalism and documentary photography, and wanted to work for magazines. And at the time, the magazine business was more robust than it is now. And I worked for many years for Life magazine and Sports Illustrated and Smithsonian, and then began to work for National Geographic then I started to work for magazines, and I don't know where I lost you, but mostly Life magazine, the Time Life family of magazines. It was like Life and Fortune, and I was on the staff of Sports Illustrated for a while, and then I started to work for National Geographic, and that has really been, I would say, my most significant association with publications.
Okay. And so tell me, what was the most important point in your life that made you decide you wanted to go into journalism or even into photography?
Well, I was actually very young, maybe in 9th grade, so maybe you're like 13, 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the work of a woman photographer named Dorothea Lange. And she was hired by the Farm Security Administration, one of our government entities at the time during the Depression, to document the hardships of people in the U.S. who were affected by the Depression.
Okay.
And I was deeply touched by those photographs. And I don't think at the time I understood the power of the fact that a woman took those images. I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten much more militant in my sort of female perspective or feminist perspective. But at the time, I think I was just deeply impacted by the photographs themselves and how they made me feel, the emotion that was stirred in me for a person who, I will never meet, and who experienced something I will probably never experience. So those images reached across time and culture and social, social safety net, lack of social safety net, and just really left a brand on me, on my heart.
So this woman photographer was the impact of you choosing to go into photography and journalism.
Oh yeah, that was it. It was like instant.
It was your awakening moment.
Yes, and I was so young. When we look back at what influences us in the world. Sorry. When we look back at what influences us, it's sometimes, gradual and very sort of dreamlike or amorphous. But this situation, it was like a switch got thrown, and I was clear in my little whole, like teenage self. This is what I am going to do. This is who I am going to be. This was very powerful moment. You're right.
Oh, wow. One thing I was looking at your website and I noticed that you say I'm short. That's one of the things I pack in my camera bag, and also invisibility, compassion, sunscreen, and outrage. Can you explain what you mean by this?
Well, I am short, like 5'1" or something.
Okay.
And I think being being a petite woman in a profession that's full of large guys or large men, our profession is still primarily male. That I think it impacts the way you work. I know for a fact that I am, as a female, and because I'm kind of diminutive, I am not visible to a lot of people. They literally will look over me. And I realized fairly early on that instead of being angry about that, I needed to take advantage of it. So I'm often able, even today, to get into places that other people would not be able to get into. Or once I'm there, I can stay and not be noticed and continue to photograph. And because I love the subtle, nuanced image, that's what I'm looking for. And so to be small in a space and to be unnoticed is important. I mean, photography is a very physical profession, and the way you move in the world and the way you use your energy is a critical part of how, at least how I do my work.
Okay.
So,
tell me, did you ever was there a moment in your life where you felt like giving up because of the discriminations you had encountered, or did those discriminations give you the fuel to continue and fight harder?
Oh, definitely the fuel. Yeah, never. I don't think I've ever wanted to give up. There are times when I felt like I didn't have the knowledge that I needed. And that's why when I was maybe in my 40s, I went back to school to get my master's degree in visual communications at Ohio University. I got a fellowship. And that felt important because I think I had taken my skills to a level that was fine, but I felt like I needed to step back and reassess how the profession worked and what was my role. It's just one of those times in life when you need to reassess your identity and what you contribute. So, but I don't think I ever wanted to give up. No, in fact, quite the opposite.
It was the fuel. It kept on giving you and feeding you the courage to go on and to fight for what you wanted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just pissed me off. It just would make me angry. And so, if I saw, and it wasn't just me, it's like the stories I'm doing are about inequality and prejudice and violence. And I think I felt like I'm in a privileged position. I'm educated. I have fabulous parents who support me. They're 93 now, both of them, and they're still like, "You go, girl," They still are fabulous supporters of what I do, and so I think that when we have the gift of freedom and some resources and education, that we have an obligation to use our gifts and skills to fight for people who cannot, and to inform the world about those who are living at great disadvantage. So, of course, as a woman, I focus on women because that's the population that is still so at risk in the world, everywhere you go, even in your fabulous country, in my country, and look at our political situations, how it can turn in a day. And now people, I don't know the implication of your latest. So I think I was ranting on about how, like, if we have the privilege of resources and education, and I have these great parents who are 93 and still are cheerleaders and support me with their love, and that we are obligated to do good work in the world and to speak for and do projects about and eliminate the fact that there are so many people in the world who are victims of injustice. And of course, as a woman, I'm now, the older I get, more and more sort of fanatic about wanting to do work about women, because I think that's the population that's at risk everywhere. So.
See, one thing I realized is that what do you try to represent with the women that you photograph? What's the representation?
Well, for me, it's always based in dignity. I think that that often women, because either they don't have a voice or their voice is so diminished by their cultural or political structure, or they're a victim of domestic violence or institutional violence. I mean, look at this Me Too movement and how, we all live in a culture of sexual harassment and violence. We may not call it that, but that's what it is. And we are just, how fortunate we are to see that tide starting to turn just a bit. And at least in this country, I mean, now finally women are standing up and saying, no, that's wrong, and I'm calling you out on it. So it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's just recently that women are starting to talk about sexual harassment. On this, have you ever had to suffer any sexual discrimination, sexual abuse, or anything while working?
I never thought that I had. I think I've experienced bias, where men are clearly given the greater opportunities, more money, and then someone else asked me that. It was actually a guy at Syracuse University where I do some teaching, and he was doing his research project about sexual violence. And I started to think back of the times in the field when, some guy in Nigeria tried to stuff me in the trunk of a car, someone in Iran, a guy in Iran tried to strangle me. And so, I have had things happen in the field that, where, clearly I'm a woman and it's a man attacking, but I always thought of it as part of the professional life. That's just what happens when you have a camera in a culture where a camera can be considered a weapon or something dangerous. You are going to be attacked. So I didn't think of that as gender violence. I thought of it as just a professional risk.
Okay.
So
a lot of risks.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that the bias in allowing you to have access to your professional passion and the bias in, unequal compensation is also a kind of violence because it keeps us as women from working to our greatest potential, and which means that our voices as women are diminished, and the voices of those we champion are diminished. And so it is all this kind of web of just the way women, I think, are kept in their place and kept down. So that's why what we do every day, both of you and me and all of the women that we know, is so important. And it's so important that we support each other.
Very true, because we need to create a network, because for a lot of women, being on your own, it's very difficult to fight if you're on your own. But if you have other people that support you, it helps a lot. One thing I wanted to ask you, what would be advice that you'd give to a woman who's experiencing gender discrimination?
Well, I think we all have to get informed about what are the laws in your area. And we have to be educated about just the general human behavior of bullying.
Mm-hmm.
Because, gender discrimination is part of that power structure and power move. So, and then I think it's like building a network of other women who will support you. And you have to call it out. You have to make it public. We can see the power of the public pronouncement of all these women who have joined the Me Too movement. You cannot, once it's sort of out of the dark and in the light, it's very difficult to put it away. And so I think yelling, screaming, protesting, legal action, and one of the things that I think women are socialized to turn against each other. Just think about the women and how many, whisper behind your back or cut down your strength, or that is not right. That's buying into that, institutional power bias also. So I think we have to call other women out on their lack of support of women.
Very true.
So,
it's very true. I've never thought of it that way. I never thought that, it's also the women. It's not just the men who are discriminating and causing all these problems. There's also women who are doing it, which is strange because it's, as a community, for all women, we should all be supporting each other. But in the end, I think it's more of jealousy. There's a bit of jealousy into this. Women are more vicious with words sometimes.
Yes, and of course, being a woman, they know how to cut you. they
Worse
know
than
the soft spots. Yeah. So I think we need to challenge our women friends to stand together, and our women enemies to stand together. And really create that united front, because the women who have, women who are driven to have power and position and wealth will align themselves with the men who have power. And, but that is not a position of dignity or respect. They are selling themselves in order to gain access to that power. And that is not necessary. They can stand with your support, with the support of all the women, and those who have integrity, they can stand, free of any compromise to their moral character.
Okay.
We just have to build that culture. We have to build that culture and that expectation.
We have to change it's changing the mentality, which is everywhere. And all over the world, we need to change the mentality and how people think. It's a big mission.
Yes. It's a big freaking mission. We need at least 5 more lifetimes to do this.
In hopes that we get to a good point. Unfortunately, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, it's going to take.
What do you think of, you checked out our website, Rosadigitale, and the motto that we have, the conquest is information. The concept fits perfectly in your kind of work, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that... Sorry.
No worries.
I think that that every outlet that puts information out into the world, information that you feel has integrity and that brings people together, is very, very important. And it has to happen on every level, on the local level, on the community level, on the country level, on the, universal consciousness level. Every level is critical. So I love what you ladies are doing. And, and I think, it's so cool that you are reaching across space here to, allow me into your web, and that's a great thing. And so I think there's no, now I can pass on your website to other photographers and other people, and, we just, all grow together.
And that would be great. That would be great, because the bigger we grow, the better it is. The more information we can get through. I mean, we would love to become international because it is an international. It started as an Italian movement, but we want to go international. Just helping women realize that, you don't need to be discriminated for what you want to do. I mean, in reality, as we go on with the years, a lot of these careers, for example, photography, sciences, math, engineering, you don't see very many women going into those fields. Maybe sometimes because of how parents have kind of grown their children, because they say, oh, no, you have to do this or you have to do that. So it all starts on the base. So, we kind of want to also work on the parents as well, make them open up, like your parents supported you all the way through. I'm pretty sure they might have had maybe a little bit of a doubt when you said, I want to go into photography and National Geographic, because you're putting yourself in danger, but you're doing it and you are showing a lot of beautiful images. Your images are spectacular because they're emotional. You can see your heart in those pictures.
Thank you.
They're absolutely stunning.
Thank you so much. Well, yes, I think parents that is where it starts. Parents are the key. The way, in fact, I did this story about infant brain development. And, with each story you learn so much. And I learned about how our early childhood, even when we're just from birth to 9 months or to a year and a half, is a critical time. And if we aren't loved and held and made to feel secure, your brain develops in a certain way. So our parents are critical. They're the first message holders. They are the ones who tell us if we are valuable or not. And from those early months and years, we grow. And so then we have to see, are we going to have a life where we fight our way into humanity, or are we going to have a life where we've been supported and loved and encouraged? So, I think messaging to parents, to young parents, about equality and, love and, physical presence, and, those are all very important things. So, Like some of my pictures on their living room wall, and like the picture of the women water warriors, as I call them, that's above their fireplace. That
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean, that's excuse me. Every time I visit them, I think, oh, without them, really, who knows what would have happened? Because I'm adopted, actually.
Oh.
I was born to someone else, and they adopted me at 3 months old.
Oh, wow.
So that part of my story is, I think, an important one, because they chose to love me and give me that strength to go out into the world and make this choice to risk and to explore and to, try to help others. So I'm just passing on their first gift of life as I work.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a great gift that they gave you, and a great gift that you're giving to many people. Let me ask you, if you wanted to leave a message to our community, what would that message be? Like a personal message.
Yes, I think it would be like come together physically if possible, and in your consciousness and intention, and to always ask yourself, am I working with integrity? Am I forming my relationships with integrity? And to look at your intent as a group. And it doesn't matter what art form you use, language, visuals, sculpture, architecture, just physical presence, spirituality. It doesn't matter. But I think we all have to work at a level of integrity that we can be proud of.
Okay.
And so I think it's that. It's helping each other in quality of who you are, and your moral character.
Great. That was a great message. I wanted to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Because, of course, like I said before, you have a busy schedule. You're traveling constantly. I read that you're hardly ever home. 2 months of the year you're home. So you travel a lot.